Welcome back to another episode of Holla at Job Podcast. Yeah, yeah. Yes, we're back with another episode. I don't know what episode this is. At this point, I'm just gonna be recording and just putting stuff out there. Yes. So let's just get to the introduction while we're here. Let's get into that while I prep for everything else. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So you have entered into the kingdom, and all who have entered, you have realized that you are worthy to be called a king or a queen now. But if you haven't, I am here to help you and I'm here to assist you. So let's just get into the topic, okay? So if you've not saw by the episode, by the title of this episode, I'm going to try my best to not edit nothing out. So we're going to keep doing that. Okay, so you guys see the topic of this episode. This is actually I think it's going to be a healing conversation, in my opinion. I think it's going to be healing, and I think this is going to help a lot of people, especially at my age range and also in my community as well. Hallelujah. I think because this is a topic that is very much needed, and a topic that I don't think people think is that impactful until later in life and until they have kids, and the next thing you know they got to start having these conversations. The next thing you know they become things as that sorts. But this episode is really that you can't keep blaming your parents. Okay, let's just heal that inner child. Let's just heal that childhood wounds. Let's heal what's you know I think that this roadblock when it comes to moving forward as an adult. Okay, so I do have some notes here that I am going to try to keep along or keep in a what's the word organized fashion. I had to put that mic, had to put one of my mics down so I can make room for my soundboard, aka this old rusted iPad of mine. Yeah, this dinosaur is crazy. So um what she say? Girl, what you asked me? You said, do I have such and such? Well, okay, just give me a few minutes. I'm sorry, I'm reading text messages. Anyway, so let's start with it. Let's start with this. Um, So anyway, before we get started, please follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. If you're watching this on YouTube, my Instagram is in the description box below. Go ahead and tap on that, tapping on it, tapping on the glass. Anyway, everything you need to know about me, everything, any business things, anything of that sort. It's just if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and just go down there and see what you can see, see what you can see, see what you can see. Now, let's get into it. So let's get into it. I don't want to hold nobody up. I'm already 3 minutes in and I'm just talking, yapping, yapping, talking, yapping. So, okay. So I think I need to put this as a disclaimer at this beginning that this should be a healing conversation and not a force you to do this, that, and the fifth, because I know that parenting can be an iffy and maybe some people have good experiences, some people have neutral experiences, some people have bad experiences. And I want to say for those who had more of a bad experience, I'm not saying that you need to force the change. Like, oh, yes, your parents did this, your parents did something unforgivable, and it's a situation where like you don't really want to forgive them or want to be on a cool basis. But I do suggest forgiveness only because when you forgive somebody or forgive a situation, that situation. Oh, it's my chair. I'm like, what is that? I thought that was a knock. No, it's my chair. But when it comes to forgiving somebody and when it comes to forgiving a situation, there's so much valuable um, growth when it comes to it, only because you don't take your anger out on people that don't deserve it. You don't take your anger out on people who care. Take your out on people who are trying to help or trying to love you or try to open doors for you or trying to give you a space to feel safe. So I suggest forgiveness to those who have had bad experiences with their parents or had bad experiences with parental figures to really open up to forgiveness and open up to the situation. Does not mean you have to get back, you have to be cool with them. You don't have to really open back up to them. You don't really have to, but forgiveness is such a powerful tool, which I'm also learning as well. So I'm not here to preach and be like, oh, forgive them for doing this. You're not making any way because when I get to the things, in the middle of this episode, it's like, well, I may speak about some things that like sounds like I'm trying to force you. I'm not trying to force you. What I am trying to do is just open your mind to how you're holding yourself back emotionally, mentally, and also that can lead to physically when it comes to the mundane. So that's just what I just want to say. I think it's very important to forgive all aspects without forgetting or without breaking down your walls and your boundaries for people who have done that to you. I just think forgiveness is a powerful tool, and I'm also learning that. So please don't think I'm trying to force anything on you. I try to take the your abuser side or your manipulator side. No, I'm really just trying to help you in different ways and just I guess see it from another person's perspective on that way. So that's just all I wanted to say for this. I don't know where I'm going to start actually, because I'm looking at my notes here and I'm saying here I need to say this before the podcast, before I get deep into this podcast, so people won't get the wrong message of this whole situation. So let me just get into it. So where's my notes at? Okay. Let's see. Let's get to the next section. Let's start the section. The first topic or the first section of this whole thing I want to say is the effect of the parent. Now, the effect of the parents, not it's not really an effect of the parents, but it's what parents are usually titled as, or I should say like usually put as, or what we expect parents to be, or what we're always told a parent is, or what a parent should be, and how parents should be treated. Like, a parent should be your protector. A parent should also nurture you, that provider, the teacher, someone, maybe a proctor, maybe a role model for you, the blueprint of what you should be looking forward to, or like the blueprint of the way that you should go. Um, those positive things, but we also can also look at parents as, the restrictors, okay, the limiters, the the trauma transfers. We'll get into that later. But we're also the ones that usually the first people that will tell you no, and to a sense of being told no to where your feelings are actually hurt. And it's interesting because no one would usually say this, but parents are actually your first form of rejection, when it comes to that no, when it comes to what you can and cannot do or what you're allowed to do, and the form of rejection that really hurts your feelings. So, when you think about a lot of those things, you actually, now that I think about it, now that I think about it, I don't think a lot of people think about things like that. I don't think that people really think about your parents being your first ever, like, quote unquote rejection that really hurts your feelings. Um, and wow, I never really thought about that until I wrote this down, and I'm just writing things down and I'm just going back over it. I'm like, wow, your parents really do introduce you to rejection, in many senses in that form. But there are pros and cons to parents. Sometimes you do appreciate your parents, what they did when you get older, because you don't fully understand, or you do have a lack of understanding back then. Or sometimes you're just like, now why would you do that? That made no sense. And honestly, I can't. There's no lessons that you can take now. But we are really taught at a young age, especially for the parents that are around, especially for the parents that, um, you know are there to really respect parents in a lot of ways and forms. Like, this can go back to religion and what the Bible says, but of course you don't have to be religion. You don't have to be religious, excuse me. You don't have to be religious for any of this to just sink in. But it is some customs, even though, I will say Christianity has a strong, strong impact on society, regardless of race, ethnicity, or community. And so, I really do I want to keep that in mind, that a lot of our societal norms are religious based, even though no one wants to say it is, or the origin of where it comes from. That's just really how it always has been. Um, and so that really just does linger with some people. I'm sorry, that lingers with people throughout their childhood, and the fear of parents. I would say that parents usually are the first ones that you usually would, like, I guess, be afraid to disappoint as well. But usually friends would do that as well. You're afraid to tell your friends no. but that's where peer pressure and you want to stay in, quote unquote stay in the loop or have a fear of missing out on things. And that's just how a lot of things would go, especially when you are starting off to understand your parents. And some, like, once you become a parent, I'm not a parent just yet, but once you become a parent, you really do see a lot of things differently, but you also want to do things differently. Now, I'm not quoting the gentle parents, because Gen- there's a for not all parents can be gentle parents, and not all kids can handle. I said handle. My gosh, not all kids are meant to be gentle parented. Um, I guess raise your children the way that you can that does not will not backfire on you in the future. I definitely say that. I definitely want to say, do, like, when it comes to parents, like, it's on you, but also do things that's not going to backfire you, that leads you to the parents and my adult child talk that really, like, they start like sputing and firing back things that you did that really messed them up. And this goes actually to the next section of this. It's the section that I wrote down as like the fear of a parent. Um, and this the fear of the parent. The fear of like the basic like things that parents that fear that basic that my goodness, I am stuttering. The basics, when parents, like, they're afraid to feel, or they're afraid to feel like they failed their children, or they failed as a parent in general. The disappointments. I would say, like, the like generations ahead. And like, when I said generations are like the older people, how older people will perceive their parenting, how older people will judge their parenting. We also have jealousy, not being able to be the parent that you thought you would, or be a parent like those other folks. And that's where also comparison comes in. And when you notice other people when they talk about parenting, usually like the younger parents and the older parents will talk, and they'll start giving, like, the older heads will start giving advice to the younger heads, and sometimes those talks don't really resonate like they should, or they may not want to resonate, or the parent, like, that person's just very much, I would say, refusal to listen, because usually the old heads method is how the younger ones are trying to avoid. I don't even think that sentence made any sense. I don't even think that sentence made any sense. Excuse me. Um, I mean, if you get it, you get it. I may have to rephrase it to those that just like, did he just say it like that? That is grammarly incorrect. I know it was. Let me rephrase that. It's usually the old heads' way of parenting that the younger parents avoid, because that's how a lot of the younger ones ended up, and the thought processes and the fears and the way that they think that, oh, I'm not going to be that way. Which, honestly, sometimes when around family, you end up around the specific family members, or around the people that you would usually pick up habits that are unaware to you, that you'll just end up doing just by being affiliated with them, or like just being around them all the time. And so that's just how that automatically goes. Um, what others? Excuse me. What others did I say? I say the fears of a parent. Oh, multiple children. Oh yeah. So especially this goes for people, um, who have multiple kids. And with the multiple kids thing, it's like, okay, it depends also on the age gap between the kids, but am I raising them all correctly? Some kids will end up different from the other children, but that's just how people are. Like, people in general, they're going to come out different based on what they see, and based on, I would say, how they feel about the situation, about sibling rivalry is a thing. I don't. Some parents are the root cause of sibling rivalry. Some of them don't want to admit it, but that's also where the fear lies, and deflecting does happen. But I think that's a whole other episode for a whole other day, and I'll get into that. And anyway, because I have my thoughts on that, but I want to get my thoughts together before anything. And I would also say there also is topics, having the gay child. Those could also be fears and also things, especially being I would say different. But again, religion also has a thing, also has a play in that as well. And so that's a whole other topic too. Dang, I need to write all these down. Um, One of the most important things that I have realized, especially with talking to other parents and at my job and parents that I know, is that it's losing control of the entire situation. Now, when I say the entire situation, this is not being able to find a solution for a lot of the problems that their children are going through. Also, not being able to be that problem solver. Yes, parents are not perfect. They're people too. Um, that's not what I'm talking about. But at least parents want to be able to at least have a baseline solution to their kids' problems, and not being able to provide a simple solution when it comes to their kids' problem is definitely something that I realize that can also cause a little bit of fear. And that's perfectly normal. And with that, you always get you always get the talks, or you always get that saying that when parents tell you, "Oh, you have to understand this, please understand that, please understand," and and also throwing that, "Oh, we're not perfect either," which has actually always irritated me. Like no one, unless you told somebody that you're supposed to be perfect or that you should do this, but no one really says that. I can't stand when people do that anyway. But back to, you have to understand, or the child having to understand the parent. You know, it's time for your parents to understand you. And I'm mainly talking to the adults. I'm mainly talking to people that are my age, 25 and up. Especially if you're out, if you like, you moved out your parents' house, or you're going your own, or you're doing your own, got a career, trying to find your career, trying to get stable ground. You with I'm trying to figure out a good way to say this and not like go emotionally based. I'm trying to stay mental and emotional. I gotta grab my water really quickly. My God, that's when they got a new setup. I need more water. Now, when it comes to it's time for your parents to understand. Yes, we all hear the phrase that, "Oh, I was once your age," or "Your parents were once teenagers or young adults in their 20s. They know how they think." I now it's now there is a 50-50 thing. There's like some of that is true. 50% of that is true, but the other 50% of that is your parents and you are in two different generations. Yes, every generation, every 20-year-old goes through the same basic structure, same basic foundation of what a young adult is and what they're trying to go through and what they are doing, what they're not doing, how they should navigate this, how they should navigate that. Should they go up? Should they go down? Should they go left, or should they go diagonal? That's simple. But every generation has evolved. Every generation has a different way of seeing things, and you have to navigate it differently, or you will be in a position that leaves you more confused than you were before. And especially with the evolution of TikTok, with the evolution of Instagram, the evolution of Twitter, Facebook, it's all pairing up. And yes, our parents are really they're understanding it too, but I get it's a more in I would say it's intellectual, like not more intellectual but more societal. There we go. A more societal base and mental, like the younger ones, especially like even like even like kids like younger than me, the teenagers now, the early 20s, now they think differently than when I was in my early 20s. And that's just how it, especially when it comes to problem solving their own situation, that's just how a lot of it goes. um but also now back to what my topic was of your parents. Like it's time for your parents to understand, your life, your choices, especially when you reach, like I said, I'm mainly talking to those 25 and older. um just from my own experience and my own age group, is that your life and your choices, including the mistakes, yes, I will say that your parents are also people, and that means they're also going to be judgmental of your own choices. That's just how it's going to be. Yes, you don't you in your mind you say, oh, you shouldn't be judgmental because you also were my age, but at the same time, they're people too. They have their own opinions, even though the opinions are going to be judgmental. That is fine. I think that we all have to deal with that eventually. But at the same time, that's just how that's just your life. Again, your life, your choice. Um, and also, you have to avoid a lot of parental expectations. Um, when it comes to parental expectations, when we are born, majority, I would say 98.9999% of parents have an expectation on how they want their son, their daughter, or their child to be, to how they should, what they should make, how they're going to support them, how they're going to navigate the world. They should do this. They should go to school. They should go to the army. They should do this, have a career, have a family by this age, have kids by this age, be financially stable here, and there, and everywhere. Yeah, that could be that. Now, when they plan out a child's life, it does feel very restricting for the child because no, a lot of children, especially young, don't ever want to disappoint their parents. And we discussed this in the beginning of the podcast. But with that, it's very scary, especially when the child starts getting a little bit more independent and they start realizing, well, I could do this and still be where I want to be. I could do this, or I could change this way, and I enjoy this, and I could go against everything that everybody said. But at the same time, that's where a lot of guilt comes in, because if I change what my parents think, then how will they take it? Because a lot of parents are go with the flow. A lot of parents are okay. You're healthy, you're safe, you're not doing anything illegal. You're doing this and doing that. You're figuring it out. Okay, if you need help, I'm here. Now, some parents are the opposite, and I have witnessed that. With others saying, no, you need to do this, that, and the fifth. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm making sure that your life is this. That also leads to another controversial thing that I've noticed a lot with a lot of parents that I've noticed, especially within high school, less college for me. I noticed in high school how a lot of parents will try to live vicariously through their children, especially if they weren't able to have the experience that their child is having or that they're putting their child through. And so that can also affect a child's relationship with their parents, especially when they get older. Um, and also puts it in a realization that, you are not your parents. Some people may act like their parents, which is cool. Some people may think like their parents, but you are not your parents exactly. You are literally whatever name your parents gave you, which I hope is not a super unique name, because my God, I know what these kids, I don't know what these new generational parents is doing with these babies' names, but my God, today, I ain't never in my life seen so many unique names, and somebody spelled honesty so weird. Like, the word is already in the dictionary. Can we not spell it like that? I don't know. Anyway. That's another rant I gotta go on, especially because one of my friends is in the school system, and she talks about these names that these babies got, and I'll be like, my gosh, these parents trying to be so unique so badly. Even though I'm gonna tell you, those names will be the reason a lot of these children start resenting. Anyway, um, where was I at? I'm sorry, I went on a whole different rant, man. I don't know. Like, um, I would say also at a like literally like you really do have to let's move on to this topic. You really do need to know your boundaries with your parents. Especially if you're moved out, especially if you no longer live under the same roof, especially if you're not constantly going to your parents for A, B, C, and D, if these, not this, not that. But you definitely need to know your boundaries, and it's okay to say no to your parents, especially if you have responsibilities of your own that you have to deal with. That is absolutely fine. A lot of people don't want to admit that. I don't know why. I don't know where the guilt comes in. I think that's also like gaslighting. If you tell somebody, "Oh, you can't tell your parents no," um, especially if you have business to handle, especially if you cannot, you can't do what they ask, or they ask for a assistance. You just can't. And oh my gosh, I would have done this if he or she didn't hold me back. I could have did this, but I decided not to. As an adult, you need to stop saying. And I'm saying this for the black community. I mainly, I don't know what the other communities do, just because I'm not a part of that community. But within the black community, there is a stereotypical. There's no father around. The mother has to raise. The mother's been raising them. They're being the father and the mother. Um, But we, as black people, do got to stop doing that narrative, especially if it is true. I get it. It's common. It's very common for that. But at a certain age, black people really do have to stop saying that, oh, I didn't have a daddy at the house, so I had to do this. I couldn't do this. I didn't learn how to do that. I say this not to be, oh, suck it up. I get why it's important, but there's a certain part of your life and a certain part of your age where you are getting too old to blame somebody else. And at this point, you just need to find someone who can teach you, or you need to learn it your damn self. Because with your daddy not being around at when you was younger, what makes you think your daddy gonna be there when you now? Yup, 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 yup. And I just, and I'm not trying to like go at nobody's neck. I'm not trying to make nobody uncomfortable or like make anybody feel some type of way. But we do have to have these uncomfortable conversations in the black community. I don't know why a lot of black people are afraid of having these harder conversations that are actually healing if you allow them to be. We have to realize when enough is enough, and why you need to learn on your own, especially if you have not learned it prior. Sometimes there are outdated advice and guidance and ways of living that you need to start learning how to live your own way. And we love, as like the older we get, we love saying that we're grown. We love saying that we're grown as an excuse for us making mistakes, which is true, make your own mistakes. But when it comes to that, oh, how should I say this? How should I say this? And you two motherfuckers need Jesus. I just don't know. I don't know how to say this without offending somebody, because I already know whoever gonna. I don't know the. I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna say this. How you doing? That statement is so overplayed and outdated. Dun, dun, dun. The I'm grown, I'm doing this, so like, and it's the thing is like, yeah, I get it when it becomes like, if you're joking around even though you're meaning it, but also when someone's like trying to really give like honest advice and actually good advice, it that statement is just so overused, because of course I can see that you're grown. Of course I see that you're older and make your decisions. You're doing A, B, C, and D. I get that. But we're also to the point where no, you're not grown. You're acting like a whole teenager who was waiting for daddy to say no. Dun, dun, dun. I just. I said what I said. And if you feel offended, it's okay. But what did Jasmine say? What she say? What she say? Your chronic thinking with again. And if you get upset, self reflect. There we go. If you get upset, self reflect. That goes back to the part where I say that we really do have to take, or we do have to hold ourselves accountable for a lot of our actions, And that is, in a way, that is taking accountability, but you can't keep complaining about the same accountability that you've had before. I don't know that how can I'm trying to figure out how to make it make sense without it seeming like I'm trying to, or without repeating myself. Yeah, I'm trying to make it make sense without repeating myself. And I guess that's the main point. We love to blame others for our own actions. And then once we get called out for our own actions, the first thing that we say is, "Oh, I'm grown. I could do this. I'm already doing this, that, and the fifth on my own. I could do this. I deserve this. I deserve that. I do like it's." I can only speak for my community and what I've witnessed in my community and how they operate on social media, in person, um, over the phone. It's just the lack of accountability. And we have gotten so comfortable with not taking accountability for our own actions when it comes to communication, our own action when it comes to doing things outside of the house, And that's such a good way to get into, let's take accountability. Let's start that. Let's appreciate what we learned growing up and what we are learning now. Whether you had both parents, or you have an absent parent, or whether they are absent back then or present now. I guess appreciate the parents now. The older that you get, I think that you should appreciate more. Because, the older that you get, the more that you realize that everything is not going to last. Literally, tomorrow is not promised to anybody because anything can happen. I ran, out of the blue, back last April. Yeah, last April, I lost a dear college friend out of the blue. And apparently there was nothing wrong with her. There was no foul play or anything when they checked her body. So, some things just happen out of the blue, and that's just how it is. Um, there are some things that your parents are going to have to realize. There are some lessons that your parents have taught you that you're going to have to leave behind and that you're going to take with you. Now, there are going to be a lot more that you're going to need to leave behind than you have to keep. I have realized that. There are very few that you do get rid of, but there are actually a lot more that you do get rid of. But those very few lessons that they taught you, and the thing is, a lot of the things that your parents taught you, they did not directly teach you. It's what you observed from them parenting you, and what you took away from it, and what they clearly communicated. Yes, you're young when your parents, when you're being raised by parents, of course, but there are some things that trigger the emotion that your parents do, that really make you question a lot of things and make you really, really just sit back and just be like, because like, why would you think to the point like, why would you do that? That makes no sense. And yes, they may quote unquote, traumatize you, or make you like really start looking at life a little bit different. I've definitely taken that accountability, especially how people act. Your parents will be the first people that show you that, humans are not perfect, but also humans are weird. And they weird on how they operate, you know. And you really do have to think about it. Like, I'm reading my notes. Like, do what they told you. No, did it work? What was I meaning when I wrote that? See, this is what happens. Sometimes I need to write my notes and then like record the same day so I know. Um. Oh, okay. Do what they told you. No, did it work? Okay. Okay. So it was a question like, did you do what they told you? No, then what did, what, I'm just gonna skip over that. I'm not even gonna do that. Like I would say, like talk about what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for the parent that was around? And you do have to show gratitude for the absent parent because you have to think about it. If that parent was around, would you have really learned it? Like knowing what you know now, especially if your parent was absent and now that your parent's around, you really have to think about it. So, what would you have learned if they were around? And you, if you're like, well, I wouldn't really have learned anything, then there was no point. There's like literally there wouldn't have been a difference with them being around and them not being around. You know what I mean? And so and then with that being said, for all my people who are parents, what kind of parent are you trying to be? And for those who are not parents yet, what parents will you be? Or what kind of parent will you be? That makes more sense. What kind of parent will you be? And I will say, you start off saying, oh, I'm going to be this parent, I'm going to be that parent, I'll be moving like this as a parent. We always start off like that until, the children gets here and then we're navigating things a little differently because, again, we're going to be the older generation when our kids grow up. So how the kids operate, how the kids see things, we won't understand how they mentally think in society. We'll only understand how we did it. So there does have to be an understanding. Yes, there will be similarities, absolutely, because humans don't evolve like that to a point where, we can't relate to each other, but have this we do have this ability to understand that, oh, we see the similarities from us growing up and us processing adulthoods and then comparing it to our children and saying how they are and seeing how they are operating and how they are navigating and seeing the similarities and the pros and cons. And, when you see the cons and the things that are different, don't take them as negativity, because I think that's what a lot of the older generation do, is that when they see things differently, they start complaining about, oh, well, back in the day, this happened. Well, back then we didn't have this and it was so simple. Like, just complaining about it. Like I do it now, especially with TikTok and how, but then no, hold up. I don't really do that, but I do it to a point where a lot of these newer generations, these younger generations is trying to take credit for something that's already been created when I was growing up. That gets annoying because that gets annoying. All they're doing it for is doing it for money. And child. Um, And so let's really, again, I think it's time for us to take accountability. The I'm grown and, and no longer blaming others and stopping all the ifs. If my daddy was there, if my mama did this more, if we would have did this, that, and the fifth, and my life would have been way better. You can still make your life way better. You can still make your life this. You can still make your life that. You can still make your life, you can still get rich in the next year. Now, granted, is that up to you? Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. You can make that better. Why isn't my explicit thing coming up? Oh my God. Do I not have it on here? I must not have my image on here. My God, that's embarrassing. Let me go to my files, but while I'm talking, um, it's right here. What is it talking about? It's right there. Um, um, where was I at? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. It's right there. I know why. There we go. Now I was like, it's right there. I forgot. I didn't. Anyway, where was I at? I got sidetracked with trying to edit everything. I should have prepared that. I was less prepared than what I wanted to be. So, is that it? I know this episode was short. I know this episode was not what I expected it to be, but I definitely wanted it to be. I needed to get another episode out there. That's really what it was. I needed to get another episode out there, and out there is what I'm doing. So, this was definitely a harder topic. So, let me know if it made sense for y'all. I really just wanted to get this out, and I think that, ooh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I need to get this out, and I think I'm to what it relates more to a lot of people. I think a lot of people are appreciating what their parents have done, but at the same time, it's like, why would you do that while raising me? Because now I'm confused. Now I'm doing this. Now I have to navigate differently because you didn't teach me that. But again, we do have to give parents benefit of the doubt. They probably did not expect that. But at the same time, we do have to take accountability for a lot of our own mistakes that our parents may have not done. So that's just really what I wanted to say is that yes, you can't keep blaming your parents only because of a certain extent, especially, everybody's learning. But at the same time, at your grown age, since you keep saying that you grown, why are you not taking accountability like a grown person? You know what I mean? you know so I hope this message hit somebody. I hope it made sense. I hope it really gave someone clarity. um I hope I didn't offend nobody or made nobody feel some type of way after what I said. I just, some things got to be said, and if you didn't like it, well then, hey, like I always say, if I stepped on your toes, why was you walking in my way? You clearly saw me. Anyway, so I'll see y'all in my next episode, and I hope you have a good day, good evening, good night, good morning, whatever you are watching this. And yeah, so peace out, y'all.